Let's get to it and see how these products work. The first thing we should do is prepare the surface for the application of these products. In this case, we'll apply the wet ground texture, which would be similar to wet mat. This will create the perfect base for our project. The application of this product is very simple. We need an older brush that we'll use to apply the wet ground texture in an irregular way, imitating real ground. Our main focus at this point should be covering the base completely. And now we'll do the same thing with the rest of the bases. Once they have all been covered with the wet ground, they'll be ready to get snowed on, and we'll try out these 4 options of snow, one on each of them. The first product we'll apply is snow. The appearance of this product is similar to shaving foam, and it can be applied similarly to the wet ground we've used in the previous step. We must spread it over the base, trying to create somewhat realistic patches of snow. When we're happy with how we've applied the snow texture, we just need to smooth out the edges by wetting our brush in water and pressing down on the applied product. And while this first texture is drying, we'll start working on the next one. In this case, we'll be using the snow sprinkles. As you can see, this texture is much more liquid than the previous one, and the other difference is that its consistency is grainy. When it comes to the application process, as you may notice, it's very similar to the previous texture. Basically, we just need to place it on the base with a brush. When we have done this, we only need to clean up the edges of the base and wait for it to dry. And in the meantime, we'll see how the snow microballoons work. It's important to keep in mind that this texture cannot be applied on its own. The base we are using here is a mixture of white glue and water, with about 50-50 ratio. While the glue mixture is still wet, we sprinkle the snow microballoons on top. As you can see, this process can be quite messy, so you may want to use some kind of spatula instead. And keep in mind to remove any excess of the product that is laying loose on top of the base. We can achieve this by lightly hitting or tapping the base. We have one more snow texture to try out, so we'll continue with the ice sparkles. Before applying this texture, we must use the white glue diluted with some water. This time, we will sprinkle the product on the sides of the base, as if there was a pathway in the middle. These ice sparkles are in reality little sparkling crystal-like balls. And once again, remember to remove all the loose parts afterwards. Let's now take a look at the results. We have the snow microballoons, which resembles the first phases of a snowfall, whereas snow sprinkles can be used to create realistic thin layers of snow. With ice sparkles, we can imitate the snow in the last phases of a snowfall and thawing snow. And finally, we have the snow texture, which would represent the freshly fallen snow. After these basic demonstrations where we've used each product separately, let's now move to a more practical example. Here we have a German artillery gun, for which we would like to create a winter base. First of all, we prepare the scene without using the glue. We should think about the position of the figures before fixing them onto the base. And only when we're certain of the placement of each object on the base, we grab the glue, in this case we're using the cyanoacrylate glue, and we glue the artilleryman onto the base. Then when we have fixed them properly, we can start to work on the snow scenery. We have removed the cannon to allow us to work more comfortably. And just like before, we'll start by applying a layer of the wet ground texture. Here are the old brushes that we've reserved for this step. This time we've grabbed some thinner ones than the brush we used in the previous example, And the reason for this is so that we can work more precisely and avoid as much as possible to stain our figures. But keep in mind that this is something that will be almost impossible to avoid completely. Apart from covering the main base, we also work on covering the small individual bases of the figures to hide their presence. This is a little trick you may find interesting to use when working on your own projects. This texture can be used as a kind of a filler that will allow us to fill the gaps and camouflage the possible height difference between the figure and the main base. We let the texture dry and then we prepare a mixture of still water and snow sprinkles. We'll add the snow microballoons to the mixture that we've just prepared. This will make its appearance more spongy. Next, we'll add a few drops of still water until we obtain a homogeneous mixture. We can use the white weathering pencil to mark the base in order to remember where approximately we need to apply the texture. In our minds, we have an idea of the middle part being muddier, with less snow, as this is where the artillery crew is working, and so they would walk over this area a lot. As you can see, this mixture helps us imitate wet ground perfectly. And this will be a great first coat, on top of which we'll be building up the different snow textures. All these products work great on their own and can definitely be used separately. However, when we mix them together in different ways, we can achieve a truly realistic result. Be sure to keep all these pieces of advice in mind when working on your own winter projects, whether your focus is the space wolves or an artillery gun somewhere in the harsh Russian winter. We'll now continue with the snow texture and we'll place this product on the more exterior parts of our base. We'll respect the areas where we've previously applied the mixture of the different products and be sure not to cover up what we've worked on before. Just like we did in the beginning of this video, after applying the product, we'll soften and blend the outside parts with a paintbrush dipped in some water. Then we'll place the gun back on the base, making sure to do this while the snow texture is still wet. The reason for this is so that the snow adapts to the shape of the wheels. Next, and again we continue while the product is still wet, we sprinkle the snow microballoons on top. This will create a somewhat foamy texture as if this was freshly fallen snow. And just like before, we tap the base from the side to remove any loose particles. Afterwards, we'll apply a mixture of snow microballoons and gloss varnish. We'll add a couple drops of varnish and a small spoonful of microballoons into our mixing cup and mix it together into a paste. This paste will help us imitate the moisture of the snow that is melting due to the passage of our artillerymen as well as the movement of the gun. We can almost feel the cold of this scenery. And remember that the winter is coming, so be sure to tag AK Interactive when publishing your winter projects on Instagram. And now it will be the time to once and for all fix the weapon to the base, for which we'll use the cyanoacrylate glue, just like we did before with the figures. Thanks to the gaps we've previously created in the snow with the wheels, we just need to place the weapon and keep it in place for a couple of seconds while the glue dries. Last but not least, we want to show you how you can imitate freshly fallen snow on objects. For this, we'll once again need the gloss varnish, but this time we'll add more of the snow microballoons. The reason for this is to create a more foamy texture. And as you can see, we're placing it around and on top of the ammo boxes, on the wheels. We're creating a kind of a foamy paste. And remember that the final result will reveal itself when the product has dried, so don't pay too much attention to what it looks like wet. Just be careful when applying it, and if you want, you can also sprinkle some microballoons on top of these objects. Just like we did before, we'll remove the excess, all the loose parts, and here we have the final result, which concludes our winter-themed project. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up or leave a comment, and remember to stay up to date on AK Interactive news by following them on your preferred social media. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you soon!